Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Coy Bowles. I'm a member of the Zac Brown Band, and I have my own project, Coy Bowles and the Fellowship. I'm going to be sharing my story and playing some songs.
Are you here? Now that's a question you don't even have to answer. Because, well, you're listening to the Paul Leslie Hour, and that tells you where you are. You're here. On this episode, we're pleased to present an interview and acoustic and vocal song performances from Coy Bowles. You see, Coy's been a member of the Zac Brown Band since 2007. Coy sings, plays guitar, slide guitar, dobro, piano, and organ. And oh yeah, Coy's a great songwriter too. His own group, Coy Bowles and the Fellowship, has released 2 albums to date. And know this, you will be glad to see Coy Bowles and the rest of the Zac Brown Band in concert with Kenny Chesney, Uncle Kracker and Megan Moroney on the 2024 Sun Goes Down tour. Visit ZacBrownBand.com for more information on locations and tickets. Hey, you do want to support independent media and the spoken word. I guess that goes without saying. So go visit www.thepaulleslie.com/support and give to yourself and to others the gift of stories. And now, ladies and gentlemen, be prepared to be in a state of awe. You are about to enjoy an interview and some soulful singing and playing with the great Coy Bowles.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure we welcome our special guest, Mr. Coy Bowles. Coy Bowles is a member of the Zac Brown Band. He also has his own group, Coy Bowles and the Fellowship. We've been sharing the story of the Zac Brown Band, interviewing a few of the members of the band, and this week we're profiling Coy Bowles. So first of all, thanks so much for making the time to do this.
Thanks for having me.
I think most stories are best from the beginning. So tell us about where you're from and how you got here.
I am from a very small town outside of Macon, Georgia, called Thomaston, Georgia. I'm an only child, and I have 2 very supportive and loving parents who've been a major part of my, success in the music business, as far as their support. Long story short, I basically started playing guitar when I was around 10 or 11 years old because my mom wanted me to do something during the summer so I wouldn't get in trouble because, just a small town and there being, boredom is the devil's hands, I guess, or whatever. So I basically took guitar lessons for that summer and I really didn't like it at all. I didn't like playing the guitar and I didn't like taking guitar lessons from this guy. So after the show was over, after the guitar lessons were over, I decided to just fiddle around the guitar in my bedroom on my own, and that was kind of where I really started taking off. I mean, I would sit in my room for hours and hours and hours after I got out of school, learning Nirvana songs, and Pearl Jam were probably my 2 biggest influences growing up. Because that scene broke wide open right at the time when I was getting into music and music was cool, when I was like 12 and 13. And so, but I had like a very compulsive nature about playing and practicing. I would sit in my room after I did my homework when I was, 12 or 13 years old and play a song for about 6 hours, literally. And wouldn't, in my mind and in my head, it felt like it was about 30 minutes. It didn't really feel like it was that long. So I progressively got, better pretty quickly just on the fact that once I picked it up, time kind of disappeared and I would just go and go and go. And then I talked to the members of my band at that time. I talked them into basically learning how to play music. I mean, I had a friend whose dad had a drum set and I talked him into learning how to play drums, and I had another friend who didn't even have a bass guitar and talked him into learning how to play bass. And basically I learned how to play drums, showed them how to do it, and learned how to play bass and showed them how to play bass. And then because I really wanted to have a band, and so by the time I was 15, I was playing, probably 14, was playing at church functions and playing at parties, like birthday parties and stuff like that for kids in my hometown. and trying to gig and stuff like that. Got a really crappy PA system, and so since I was literally about 14 or 15, I've wanted to gig. I really don't know why either. I mean, I don't really know why the drive was to do it, other than the fact that I just knew I could, and it was the only other thing to do, really, besides, because just dreaming about it in my room, like closing my eyes and thinking I was on stage didn't seem all that fun, because I really wanted to do it, in real life. So, and that led into me going to college and playing music there. And I took a year off from playing music altogether when I was a freshman in college. I was in the dorms, and you couldn't play musical instruments in the dorm. And so I had a guitar, and I would, go and play in the park and stuff like that every once in a while. But it just became such a hassle that I really just kind of, put it aside. And then about 8 months later after that, I got back into it again and kind of got bit by the bug. I mean, I remember sitting in my bedroom and listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan and being like, I could hear everything that he was doing. And I could hear it, and I was like, wow, that's really weird. I mean, I know, it's like I can speak language now, I listened to music enough and play guitar enough to where, I mean, it was literally like one day, I remember the day sitting there and be like, I understand everything he's doing. And so I spent the next maybe 5 hours learning how to play every note that he was playing, and I could do it. I mean, I literally, my hands and my mind and my body and everything I could do it. And so I was like, wow, that's really crazy. And then after that, I was so stoked about how cool that sounded and that I was able to do it, that it was kind of no going back from there. I mean, I officially got bit by the bug, and I was going to school studying biology and was about 6 months away from graduating with a biology degree, and was in lab one day and just realized that I couldn't really do this anymore. It was just ultimately the most boring life. And I was like, I always considered myself to be somebody who was going to make a difference in the world. And not that you can't make a difference playing, in biology, or in that field, but that my life, was more about passion and, artistic nature and creativity and things like that. And I called my mom and was like, I think I'm going to quit going to school for biology. And she was like, what? You only got 6 months left, And I was like, yeah, I think I really want to go to school for music, And I had started taking guitar lessons from a Brazilian classical guitar player in Carrollton, which is actually where I met Zac. I was going to school at West Georgia and about to graduate from there. And I was taking lessons and learning basic theory, major scales and stuff like that. And because I was getting very frustrated practicing in my room for 6 hours a day, after I, went to school for 8 hours a day and studied biology, that I was kind of hit this place to where I wasn't hearing any other things in my brain, So I wanted to start, talking to somebody and taking lessons because I'd never taken lessons before, so I figured it couldn't hurt. So anyway, I switched paths and ended up going to school at Georgia State and graduated from school at Georgia State with a jazz degree. And that was kind of where I met, all my Atlanta musician friends and connections, and started really getting into playing, the blues hardcore in the Atlanta scene and jazz hardcore in the Atlanta scene and all of that, so.
Tell us about your influences now. You mentioned a couple of people that you felt were an influence on you in the beginning.
Sure.
What about now?
I mean, honestly, I think that now is really interesting because it's my friends. It's the people that I hang around with more often. It's the people that, that I know their lives, and I know the reason why they wrote that song or the reason why they're playing that song is because of the way they're feeling. I mean, I would say, some of my biggest influences of all time that, other people would really know would be like Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder and, obviously the Beatles and maybe Derek Trucks and Allman Brothers and Jeff Beck and those kind of guys. And even in the last 2 years since I've started playing with Zac, I've got influence to Daryl Scott, who's an amazing songwriter, musician, and a lot more of like Jerry Douglas, bluegrass players and things like that. But my biggest influences over the last maybe 7 to 10 years have been people when I started playing in the blues scene in Atlanta, like a fellow named Oliver Wood, who's got a band called the Wood Brothers. He was a big influence on me as far as songwriting, being very passionate about your instrument, and also in music business, like how to how to be a successful musician and not sell out and be passionate and be for real, and it's not about playing in front of, 10 million people as much as it is the 700 people or the 7 people that are watching you are really believing it. And if they go and tell somebody else, then one day it will work out, And there's another guy named Donnie McCormick, who was God, even mentioning his name makes me smile and laugh. He's no longer with us, but he was probably the most creative person I've ever met in my life. And he kind of took me under his wing at Northside Tavern, which is a legendary blues bar in Atlanta that I played at and basically cut my teeth at playing guitar and at in the last, 7, 8 years. And he was a very interesting guy, man. He's a hardcore, kind of a biker guy, very pop art, or folk art, I guess you would say, not pop art, but folk art. For example, I walked into his loft/warehouse thing that he used to live at one day. It was like kind of like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the way it looked inside. It was just crazy stuff everywhere. And somebody had given him like a very expensive blow-up pool. And he was asleep on a blow-up air mattress in a blow-up pool inside of his house. It was full of water, and he was just like floating around with his fan blowing on him. And I was like, Donnie, are you all right, man? He was like, yeah, check out this new pool I got. And I was like, wow, that's insane. Who has a pool in their house? You know what I mean? So he was definitely outside the box, but he was probably one of my biggest influences because of the fact that, and he was a big influence on Oliver as well. We were all hanging out in the same scene in Atlanta. But Donnie, I'll just never forget, some of the things that he stood for, which is, creativity in music is really what it's about. It's not about the money. It's not about the fame. It's not about, success or anything else. It's just like your heart is what you really have to take care of, And when you see it and you breathe it and you're around people who are really doing it the same, then it makes you feel a certain way, and you never want to stop feeling like that, So, I would definitely, and plus he was a great songwriter. I mean, don't get me wrong, as far as he wasn't just this very, spiritual kind of guy who had all this great advice. He was, when he played and when he sang, he played a chicken coop, actually. He had like surpassed drums. He played drums his whole life in, a band called Eric Quincy Tate, which was huge at one point. They were signed to Capricorn, and the Allman Brothers actually used to open up for them. But he later, after traveling around the world and, and touring and everything and doing all that, he later just got where the drums were limiting to him. And so he grabbed a chicken coop, a wooden chicken coop, and put bells and cowbells and stuff all on it. And that was what he would play for an instrument. And that was the most mesmerizing thing to me, because when you first look at it, you're like, this guy's playing a chicken coop. That's pretty funny. But when you really see him play it, you're like, he's playing it as if it were like, a real instrument that you would look up in some book of instruments, and it'll be like, the chicken coop is a percussive instrument, So, yeah, and just, not following rules. I mean, when it comes to creativity and it comes to music, such as that, it was awesome to be around somebody who playing the chicken coop was legit. And so that makes you think about, well, do I need to have 6 strings on my guitar? Or do I need to play guitar? You know what I mean? Or it just makes you kind of think outside the box. And ultimately, that's what it's really about to me, so.
I never thought we'd go there. We're kind of resurrecting a tradition that we used to have on the show where an artist will play a song from one of their influences. You're a man that frequently wears a hat, so this is your chance to tip the hat.
I'll play a Donnie McCormick song, actually, now that we've been talking about him so much. This is a kind of Sean Costello, which is another Atlanta musician who, sadly enough to say, he recently passed away as well. But I learned how to play this song just so I could have this in my heart and play it whenever I felt like I wanted to revive Donnie and Sean. So this is a Donnie McCormick song called Have You No Shame. I saw you last night under those parking lot lights all wrapped up in somebody else's arms. From the shadows I could see the way you looked at me. You had a hard time resisting all its charm. But have you no shame? Have you no shame? Have you no shame? Have you no shame? I heard it from a friend of mine, but I guess I knew it all the time, that your love never did amount to very much. The weather will never be the same. I can't see my teardrops for the rain. And this heart hurts. This heart hurts to the touch. Have you no shame? Have you no shame? Have you no shame? Have you no shame? I saw you last night under those parking lot lights all wrapped up in somebody else's arms. From the shadows I could see the way you looked at me. You had a hard time resisting all its charms. Have you no shame? Have you no shame? Have you no shame? Have you no shame?
Great song.
Yeah, it is, man.
Very good. Thank you, Coy. You have an album out called Into the Distance. I was hoping you could tell us about the title track.
My great aunt found out she had cancer, and she was okay with it. And I never in my life met anyone who would look death in the face and just been cool with it. And I thought that was probably the most amazing thing that I've ever been a part of. She'd lived a long life. She had kids who loved her. She loved her kids. She had no regrets. And to me, that's the ultimate meaning of life, is to when it's all said and done, you're okay with it. And so that made me realize that was, I think between the ages of 25 and maybe, I don't know when it actually ends, but I would probably say somewhere around maybe 40 is when you start really, going through the phases of having kids and getting married and, or being around people who are doing that. And I think that that's when you start, when you see birth, you also start kind of realizing that there's, death around the corner, because, when you're in college and when you're 18, you don't necessarily think about things that much. But the older you get, the more you start realizing things of that nature. And that was really the first time that I started realizing that, there's a lot to this whole thing, and I better start really kind of going for it while I'm alive, And so I came up with this concept that, we all too pass into the distance. And it was actually, weirdly enough, Donnie McCormick had just had a heart attack, and somebody was asking him how he was doing, and he said, "Yeah, this old ticker just keeps on ticking." And then behind his back, somebody was talking about their car, and they said, "Yeah, that damn thing left me on the side of the road. I guess it's finally kicked the bucket." And I started thinking, wow, it's really interesting how people kind of relate their cars to being alive. And so I basically, within the song, made an analogy to your life being a ride in a vehicle, or my great aunt's life being a car, and so there's a lot of analogies to, kind of riding down the road or that kind of thing. It being a trip, a journey. It was one of the first songs that I ever wrote that I really felt that said exactly what I wanted to say too, which was a great feeling, And so I thought I would dedicate the album to her, and I thought it would be a nice name for my first album, to have some depth to it. So,
do you write now with the other members of the Zac Brown Band?
Yeah, a lot. We just, Zac and I, Levi Lowry, and I think Wyatt Durrett. When Wyatt Durrett was actually the father, he was the one who birthed the song, as we call it. But we all sat down and kind of finished it, over maybe a month to 2 month period, a song called Colder Weather, which I could think maybe possibly be one of the best songs that band's ever written. And Zac will say the same thing, and a lot of the guys will. It's just, and we're playing it on the show now. Like if you was to come and see the band live, you'd see it, on a nightly basis. And I had a lot to do with writing that song. And there's another song called Who Knows, which is more of a jammy, improvisational style tune that I wrote when I was about 19 that Zac and I and the band ended up arranging, together, and Zac wrote some verses for it. And so, yeah, I write a lot, with the band, and I would say it's the most constructive group of lunatics I've ever been around, because there's a lot of productivity going on, but man, it's a bunch of basket case guys, all good guys, but just everybody's a character in themselves, so.
What do you think of Zac Brown?
A lot of things, man. He's probably the most complicated person that I've ever met, and complicated not in a, he doesn't get in his own way, really. I don't mean that he's confused or anything like that, but he's just got more going on than anybody I've ever met before, whether it be, in his head and in his heart, or just in business, I will say, in one of the things that when somebody asks me about Zac Brown, I always say, never doubt Zac Brown. Because if he wants to get something done, he will get it done. Whether it, it's no matter what it takes, it'll get done. So that's the one thing about him that I'll say never. If he says he's going to do something, then you can bet on your bottom dollar it'll get done. It might take a while, or it might whatever. There might be restrictions that life comes about, but he's a great songwriter, a great friend, man. I mean, I've been through a lot of stuff where he's been a great friend, just besides being, a great boss and a great musician and a great father and great family man and all that. But, as far as, I think he's an all around super dude, man. And I really think that I feel really blessed to be a part of, kind of more or less his bigger vision, because it's the real thing. I mean, it's a family, and nobody can take that away from me, so it's a great thing.
You have a song called The Healing.
Yes, which is really funny. Speaking of songwriting, John Hopkins and I and Wyatt Durrett is a fellow who wrote a lot of songs with Zac, such as Chicken Fried and Whatever It Is and Toes, and songs that Zac Brown fans might know to be the more popular songs. But Wyatt's a great friend of mine. So is John Hopkins. John Hopkins plays bass for the Zac Brown Band. And I came up with the hook. I had just broken up with a person that I was very much in love with, and was out on the road and was just carrying around a heavy heart, more or less, and realized that you have to heal yourself. I mean, like, just like a wound, you have to learn how to heal yourself. And it's in the healing process in which you gain all this great wisdom about how to do that again or not do that again or whatever, take care of yourself. And so I came up with this line. It's in the healing when your heart's so broke that it's stealing, because when your heart's so down and out, you can actually feel like it would take love from somebody else if it could, it would steal love. And so John and I sat down and wrote the rest of the tune, and Wyatt helped in on some spots that we couldn't really figure out, and I think it's a pretty cool song.
Well, let's hear it.
All right. It's all I can do to not think of you. My line keeps ringing, but you're not around. It's not right for me to hold on in the sleep. So I pray you're well, and I put my phone down. Send the healing. When your heart's so broke that it's stealing, send the healing. There's that feeling when you bring back believing, it's in the healing. I fall down on my face, can't seem to replace the souls I have burned and left in the cold. But my spirit is willing, and I won't lie down. Right on my wrongs, turn this around. Send the healing. When your heart's so broke that it's stealing, send the healing. There's that feeling when you bring back believing, it's in the healing. Standing on the edge of the world, just trying to hang on. Tearing down the walls to get back to where I started from. Some healing. Your heart's so broke that it's stealing, send the healing. There's that feeling when you bring back believing, it's in the healing. Healing, it's in the healing.
Coy Bowles, The Healing.
Yes, sir.
Somebody could listen to that song and almost interpret a spiritual or gospel message.
I have a preacher side to me. I will not lie. I mean, I don't necessarily consider myself all that of a religious person, even though I've been to church and I get the idea. But I would consider myself to be a very spiritual person for sure. I mean, almost to me, to a certain degree, what else is there really? I mean, I think that I have songs that are about, things that don't really matter, but not as much, so.
Well, as Jeff likes to say, songs that aren't about paper plates.
Yes.
Well, what is it you like about music, if you could put it into words?
It's a release for me. Ever since I was very young, if I don't do something to release kind of what's going on in my body. I don't really feel like I'm growing, and I can get contaminated, I guess, as I would like to call it, you know. So it's a way for me to have a thought, whether it be good or bad, and then release it. And then so I don't have to really think about it anymore, you know, and I can move on to other thoughts or other feelings. And so it's a way for me to release. I think that the world would be a lot sadder place if it wasn't for music. You know what I mean? It's very uplifting. I mean, I love to listen to music and just feel good. I mean, it actually has like a, you know, a resonating, you know, uplifting, you know, thing to my body and my mind and my spirit and everything. So, but I also love playing music. I mean, there's not a better feeling in the world than going out on the stage, especially now since we're playing in front of like, you know, 10,000 people or something like that, and go out on stage and see a bunch of people like throwing their beers up in the air, and like they're all have their mouths wide open screaming because they're about to hear what you're about to play, and you're about to really get off on the fact that they really want to hear what you have to play. So it's kind of like a big circle of everybody, like, you know, giving each other like a back rub or something. You know, it kind of goes around full circle. They get off on what we do, and we get off on what they do, and we have to have them, and they have to have us. So, I mean, it's a very awesome feeling to, at the end of the night, just go, we just rocked their faces off. And then for somebody else to come up and be like, you just rocked my face off, you know? And so you're like, that's awesome, you know? I mean, that's still kind of the stuff that, you know, when I was 13 years old, I was closing my eyes and playing with, you know, Pearl Jam and thinking about, you know, how awesome it would be to rock somebody's face off. And now I'm doing it for a living and with a bunch of people that I really believe in and songs that I really believe in. So, you know, it's like music is a great thing to me, you know. I mean, it's a lot more than that too, you know, but, you know, that's kind of, I guess, in words.
Well, speaking of rocking people's faces off and people with their arms thrust in the air with beers in their hands and their mouths open, there's a gig coming up. It's on October 30th.
Yes, the Fox.
I want to talk about this, and I want to make sure everyone is aware of it.
Well, Wilmot Green is a fellow who owns the Georgia Theater. Wilmot Green went to high school with John Hopkins, who is the bass player for the Zac Brown Band. The Zac Brown Band got its start from playing places such as the Georgia Theater, and the Georgia Theater, with all of us being and the band being, you know, Bulldog fans, you know, as far as football goes, and a lot of people spending, you know, countless hours in Athens, you know, over the years and everything else, and Athens being a big staple of what it's like to be from Georgia. The Georgia Theater is like a mecca for upcoming bands, and it's a place that when you have, especially we used to play on a lot of game days because we were, you know, somewhat popular band. And so we would play on game day at the Georgia Theater, and having, you know, people who have been drinking since 10 o'clock in the morning, who their day is going to be fulfilled with such things as watching UGA win or lose and going and seeing the Zac Brown Band at the Georgia Theater. And I was also with my band, the Coy Bowles and the Fellowship, opening up for Zac at this period of time too. So, you know, my band got to experience what it was like. And again, you have, you know, people with their mouths wide open, with their beers up in the air, screaming at the top of their lungs, you know, wanting to hear the music. And when it's at the Georgia Theater, man, it's awesome, you know. And that place burnt down maybe 4 or 5 months ago. It might have been longer. But, you know, with Wilmot being a great friend of ours and us playing there over the years and having such a warm, you know, feeling like that's kind of a place that gave us, you know, I guess who we are, you know, made us who we are, that it would be the best thing we could do is to throw a benefit in Atlanta and give back. So we're doing a concert at the Fox Theater day before Halloween, October the 30th, and all the proceeds will go to the Georgia Theater for it to be rebuilt. And we're also going to be filming a DVD there, I believe, in which it will be for sale later on. And we'll have a lot of special guests coming in that night as well. I hear talks of Oliver Wood, who I've mentioned earlier, is going to be talks of him coming, and I believe some other people who are highly, highly recognized in the music industry. I don't even know if I can say, so I don't want to say, but you know, these people are huge, I would say, you know, friends that we've come to know over the last 2 years, you know, with the Zac Brown Band. So I'm really looking forward to it, man. The Fox Theater is like so far is by far the most prestigious place that I've ever played. We opened up for Sugarland one time there before, and I haven't gotten nervous from playing music in probably 7 or 8 years, and I was nervous as hell just because I was like, I don't even know if I'm worthy of playing the Fox Theater, Like, I know people who are amazing musicians and they've never played here, so what gives me the right to play here? But I played anyway, and I had a great time, so we're going to play there again, and I'm really looking forward to everybody showing up. So, come.
All the listeners can go to zacbrownband.com for more information on that, and that's zacbrownband.com. Our special guest is Mr. Coy Bowles. Coy Bowles, what is your all-time favorite meal?
Man, I'm so changing with the weather as far as, I would honestly have to say my all-time favorite meal when in doubt is probably Mexican food from a joint called Nuevo Laredo, which is kind of in the back part of Atlanta on a road called Chattahoochee Industrial Boulevard. It's kind of off of Howell Mill Road, if you know where that is. And it's been voted the #1 Mexican restaurant in Atlanta for 15 years or something ridiculous like that. But their slogan is, your search for the perfect salsa is over. That's how much, they believe in their salsa. And I was pretty skeptical, man, because I really like salsa and I like to make my own salsa. And I didn't really believe it, that they were going to be able to come with it like that and then back it up. But they have the freshest cilantro that you can possibly ever put your mouth on, and they have it caked inside the salsa. And I was like, it's over with. I don't even need to make my own salsa anymore. I can just come here and buy theirs, and it would be twice as good as mine will ever be. And it's like a little house, so it's really cool. And there's pictures of weird stuff all over the walls, and so it's not like your normal Mexican restaurant. But yeah, Nuevo Laredo by far.
They believe in their salsa, but you also believe in
I
their salsa.
do believe that my search for salsa is over.
Well, there's a song that you're going to play in a moment. But before you play it, and I hope you tell us about the song as well, what are your parting words for our listeners? This broadcast goes out all over the world. So what would you like to say to all the people out there?
Oh, man, this is where, do I take it deep or do I just, I'd probably say if there's anything that you want to do it. That's and not like I'm trying to give advice or anything like that, but I guess it is a little bit of advice, but, anything is possible, and I'm surrounded by a group of people who believe that. Everybody that I hang out with in this band believes that if they want to do something, that they can do it. And it's an unbelievable thing to be around because I feel like I'm in this weird bubble because then I step outside of it and I hang out with other people who aren't involved with this band or whatever. And they don't necessarily believe that. And it's an amazing thing to be around these people. So I feel like I'm blessed, but it's also a little bit disheartening to believe that there's people that I know that I love a lot who don't necessarily believe that. So surround yourself by good people and believe that you can do whatever you want to do and don't stop until you finally get there. That's what I would say to anybody who would ever listen to me, which is you guys out there. So.
Well, there's one more song you're going to play for us, and it's called This Old Town.
Yes. Well, I feel like I've just been super, super deep and spiritual and all this kind of stuff while in here. So this song's going to be the mega icing on the cake. But I had a friend of mine that I went to high school with, and he passed away. But he was actually not in a very good way. Let's just say that. So I don't really think I want to tell the story of this song actually, because it doesn't really matter. But you can get a gist of it from the song. But it was just me kind of looking at small town life and realizing that some small towns, there's some wicked stuff that goes on in small towns, and everybody kind of turns their back towards it and looks the other way sometimes. And I wonder why. I don't really know why. Not to say that, it doesn't happen in the big city or it's even wrong because it happens because everybody hasn't got to carry the weight of the world or fix other people's problems, but It's just that it's super magnified when you're in a small town, you know, so. A little tuning here. I knew a kid when I was young. He was wild as a wolf in the midnight sun. He lived in a shack down by the McCoys. He was broken, bent, and we called him Po' Boy. He said, my old man is a piece of work. He fights like a fish on a hook. He laughs at the devil and he smiles at a priest. He told me he loved me once at least. He said, I'll beat you, boy, like my daddy beat me. I hate you, son, 'cause you hate me. I never had anything in this life but pain. The day I was born was the birth of Cain. So you can't run and you can't hide. All you've got's what I provide. I won't remember till the whiskey flows, but when my blood thins, boy, you will know. Yeah, you will know. Singing this old town's gonna go to hell. One last wish from the wishing well. We'll hug your mama and say your prayers. See you in the morning if you take it there. Singing this old town's gonna go to hell. One last wish from the wishing well. We'll hug your mama and say your prayers. I'll see you in the morning if you make it there. Well, poor boy grew to be quite a man. He took all the beatings and he held them in. He got married, had a boy named Jack. They left the town of Thompson and they never looked back. Well, all was fine and all was well till they heard the news from his sister Michelle. Said, poor boy, I got news, it'll make your fist curl. Daddy's been messing with our baby girl. So he jumped in his truck into the Thompson line, down by the river where his old man reside. He flipped out and he went wild. You can beat me, but you ain't touching no child. No child. Singing this old town's gonna go to hell. One last wish on the wishing well. We'll hug your mama and say your prayers. See you in the morning if you make it there. Singing this old town's gonna go to hell. One last wish on the wishing well. We'll hug your mama and say your prayers. I'll see you in the morning if you make it there. Well, he beat his old man from an inch of his life until he reached back and he pulled out his knife. He said, poor boy, you will never beat me. Stabbed him in his heart and he set him free. Well, ain't it a shame that some die this way and killed by the man who beat you every day? But poor boy broke the old town spell. He grew up to teach his children well. Yeah, you teach your children well. Singing this old town's gonna go to hell. One last wish from the wishing well. We'll hug your mama and say your prayers. I'll see you in the morning if you make it there. Singing this old town's gonna go to hell. One last wish from the wishing well. We'll hug your mama and say your prayers. I'll see you in the morning if you make it there.
Coy Bowles, This Old Town.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for doing this, Mr. Bowles.
Yeah, I've had a blast, man. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I really liked what you said about limiting beliefs.
Yes, it's all about, life is short, man. You got to get out there and grab it, If I wasn't so blessed to be around all these people, I don't know if I'd believe it as well. But, it's a good thing, man. It's a positive world out there, There's a lot of stuff you see on the TV that can bring you down. So don't watch TV and do what you believe in,
Amen.
Yeah.
We thank you and appreciate you dropping in for the Paul Leslie Hour today. You can help the Paul Leslie Hour in our mission to provide independent media content like this by visiting www.thepaulleslie.com/support. We truly thank you. This is your announcer speaking. Performance of The Entertainer intro song and Corina Corina outro song, courtesy of John Primorano. Well, that's it for today. So until next time, be safe and be good.